Hey guys, AscendantGod here. And below. Yo, Great Shadow Legends, playing Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss. Seems like it's a good run here, so I figured I would take the last end part of this just to show you that how this group here works, in case you guys have the same champions or similar composition here. So to start, this is a pure counter group, no speed, no hybrid speed counter. It's pure counter. So I got Martyr as my counter champion, I got Dracomorph as a poisoner, Steel Skull as a backup poisoner, as a mild poisoner, doesn't do much as far as poisons, but a healer that can remove the stun, as well as an overall healer and increased defense champion. I have Altan, who was my latest replacement in this group for Tyrell, only a very slight upgrade. He doesn't have the defense down that Tyrell had, which I don't like, because then I don't get it up on the boss as fast for that first round, and sometimes not for the second round if Martyr fails on her counterattack to apply it. But he does do slightly more damage, and more than anything, what he brings to the table is the extra defense aura. He has 8% more defense on his aura, which means 8% more defense on everybody. It's not huge, but it's a little bit. He was only a very, very small upgrade from Tyrell. He's increased my average damage maybe about, I'd say maybe about 1.5 million, maybe. Probably maybe just about 1 million, because I think maybe 1 million at best probably from him now that I'm thinking about it, because I've also done artifact upgrades on champions too. Yet my average damage is only increased by about 1.5 million, maybe 2 million. But I feel like this is a good run here too, though, so I wanted to show you the mechanics here with this group. Now, one problem with Turvold here is, like I've said in previous videos, he doesn't play well with a pure counter group because he gives himself a speed buff all the time. So when he gets his speed buff, he rips through turns, which means he rips through counterattacks, and regretfully with Martyr, where I have this increased defense, it greatly helps my survivability for my champions. But if he rips through his, then he ends up dying an AoE round, if not 2 AoE rounds sooner, because instead of a defense amulet on him, I have a crit damage amulet. He just does so much more damage that way. I've tested both with the extra defense. It's like, what, an extra 260 defense, which is a lot, but I've compared that to the extra, I think it's 33% crit damage I get from that amulet. That extra 33% crit damage is better. I mean, there's other stats that factor in as well, but overall, generally speaking, those are the biggest differences between the two. And the extra crit damage on him, he scales so well that it's better that way for him to die an entire AoE round sooner and lose, like, say, 2 or 3 rounds of hits than to lose that extra 33% crit damage. And the other amulet too had like 15% crit damage on it on one of its bonus stats. So still getting 15% crit damage and the 260 whatever defense. This one does have some defense on it. I think it's like 40 or 50 something points defense. So that's, again, there is some sub stats that are factored in there as well. But what it boiled down to is that I realized the extra crit damage on him with the other stats and that he has on him right now is better, more advantageous than the extra defense, and he dies sooner. As you can see here, he survived with a sliver of life on that last AoE round. That's the AoE round where sometimes he even dies on the AoE round before that. It kills his damage. It's kind of a gamble with the gear I have on him right now. I'm actually in the Great Hall working on more hit points and more defense for Void just to get him up, because I need to increase his survivability. I can't put that amulet on him. It costs him way too much damage. With the amulet on, he usually does more damage than Steel Skull, who's a poisoner, which is great, because I mean, Steel Skull, a lot of the damage relies on poisons. Meanwhile, Turbo does more damage without any need for debuff slots, which is great, because these debuff slots from Steel Skull sometimes gets in the way of Dracomorph not being able to apply a full 4 poisons, which kind of sucks. Or sometimes a full round, because I only have 2 slots open and Dracomorph does 4 poisons at once. It's like, well, it's not really worth applying just 2 poisons when if I wait 1 more round I can apply 4. So the situation's like that. But with this group, like I said, the biggest issue with a group like this is when you have Turvold in a pure counter group, because he doesn't play well with it. Another issue with him is that the nice thing about Altan here, it doesn't make a huge difference, but a slight difference where you can get an increased defense. Like Martyr gives me the increased defense for the 2 AoE rounds, which is the most important. But Altan also helps me out with an increased defense for the round of the stun. Now, the problem here, though, is that when he does that, a lot of times Turbold has at least the 2 turns because he'll give himself the increased speed buff, and then he'll come at the boss with the Juggernaut, the A3 or the A1, try to apply Weaken and refresh that. So with that said, when he gets 2 turns, he rips through those 2 turns worth of the increased defense. So, loses it. And then when he loses it, that means Turbold's always the one to get stunned, and he's always taking more damage than anybody else would take if they still had the increased defense. Now, the options here are, number 1, avoid using his A2, don't apply the increased defense to ensure that he's still going to be the one getting stunned, because he can take more damage than Turbold, because he has much more defense. And for those of you who don't know, your leader is the one who typically gets stunned unless somebody else has much less hit points. Like say with him here, he would obviously be the one to get stunned because the boss would try to kill him, and he would at that point, but he has a turn going before the boss, so not worried about that. He'll heal himself. Even if he doesn't get War Master, he hits so hard, he'll heal himself. Not worried about that. But the other issue where the boss won't stun the leader is if they do have, say, like an increased defense or a counterattack and other champions don't. Then the boss is going to go for the other champion that doesn't have that bonus stat. So there's a couple of circumstances where they won't attack your leader. So like sometimes you might be wondering, why the heck did this champion get stunned? Why didn't he stun my leader? It's random. It's not random, or at least not as random as you think. Sometimes it's random. Sometimes, every once in a rare while, had Steel Skull, my healer, gets stunned. Boss will go after my healer even at full hit points. That's usually when the damage is really, really, really intense. The boss prioritizes taking out your healer, including a kind of underhanded, I guess, rig job that Plarium has where, in case you guys haven't noticed yourselves, if you have a healer in your group, other clan members have noticed it too, because I'm like, is this just like me, or is it a glitch with Steel Skull? It's not. If you have a healer in your group, Plarium has rigged it so that once the damage starts to get lethal, your healer has a substantially less chance of proccing their War Master and healing themselves from lifesteal. So it basically increases the chances that they're going to get killed. Now you'd ask, why would Plarium do that? That makes no sense. Makes perfect sense. If you're not doing enough damage on the clan boss to get the final chest, and then you want to get the final chest, what are you going to do? Spend gems on it. Gems cost money. Or even if you don't spend money on them, then maybe you didn't spend money on them, but now you need more gems, so now you buy gems for something else. So it's all about money there, but it's definitely an underhanded rig, because I asked other players in the game, and I'm like, is it just something with Steel Skull where Steel Skull's bugged and there's some kind of mechanics that makes this War Master happen a lot less frequently? Because it is very, very often. You look at previous videos of mine, and all the time you'll see me saying like, look, friggin' Steel Skull missed it again, or oh look, Steel Skull got friggin' stunned because he didn't get his hit points back, things like that. It happens all the freaking time, like way, 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 way beyond coincidence. You'll see everybody else, they'll get their counter attack, they'll heal themselves, or if they don't, they get their main attack, they heal themselves. Because War Master or Giant Slayer, War Master is a 60% chance. All of mine are War Master right now, because I don't have Natural. Natural used to have Giant Slayer, but with that said, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's for I would get like all my other champions would heal themselves with those 2 hits because each one has a 60% chance. Steel Skull would miss both of them, get themselves stunned, die. I did put my healer in the defense tree, and that does help you a lot, because then that means that even with that rigging job that they have, if your healer gets stunned, there's supposed to be that 50% chance that they'll remove the stun from themselves from that mastery in the defense tree. I don't remember the name of it. I believe it's on the 3rd tier, where it's like a 50% chance that if you take more than 25% of your hit points in damage during a single turn, that you'll remove a random debuff. Well, obviously the boss, other than this mild poison, you're almost always just going to have the stun, especially the stun turn, you should only have the stun. So that it would remove that, and then you also have a chance to counterattack too at that point. So you could remove the stun and you can end up counterattacking, which is pretty cool. Other than that, the defense tree really isn't that great. I know some people like to run with defense on other champions. For me, it only works better on my healer. Everybody else I've tried to run it with, it's just made them so much worse. So much worse. Because of that lasting gifts, especially if you're relying on debuffs on a champion, lasting gifts, invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. So, I'm running into a dilemma here because I know Turbolt's going to be getting 2 turns. He's going to be able to heal himself, which is good. But even if I use Altan's A2 with this, he's going to lose it. So then it's like, well, do I want to forego using his 2 turns and get the increased defense at the possibility of keeping people alive longer? The thing is that Steel Skull is most likely going to be able to top off Turbolt, and Turbolt, you see how much damage he took here, and the damage is going up. He survived with a sliver. He's most likely going to die soon anyway, so you might as well have him go out with a bang. In this kind of circumstance, I say get the most you can out of Turbolt, because you know he's going to die soon. If you got a champion like that that's a high damage dealer, but they just barely survived the last AoE, I say push everything you can from them and just send them in there. It's like a suicide bomber. So, anyway, here we go. So, going to use Altan's A2, because this A2 does hit harder on average. Not so much if it doesn't crit, but yeah, with the crit there, 81,000, that's about half of what Turbolt does on his A3, so that's really good. That's like the hardest raw damage that I have out of all my champions. Regretfully, because he's my stun taker, he doesn't get a whole heck of a lot of damage because he's getting stunned a lot. He doesn't use his A2 a whole lot, mainly because I don't like using the A2 in the beginning, because when I use the A2 in the beginning, he has 2 turns of increased defense, and then everybody else loses it, like, by the time that the stun comes, and then somebody else gets stunned instead of him. Now, you can rotate it around to where he uses the A2 right before the stun, but the problem is that, again, with my group, Turbolt's getting in the way. Because Turbolt usually has 2 turns during that round, which means that he'll rip through his turns, he'll lose the increased defense, and he'll be the one to get stunned. I can't have him getting stunned. He is my highest raw damage dealer. He's amazing. That's why I won't get rid of him, even though he doesn't play well with this group. He's kind of the redheaded stepchild of the group, but he's the redheaded stepchild that's the maniac with like a baseball bat in a china shop. He just goes to town on the boss. So anyway, with that said, I don't want to toss him just because he doesn't play well with it, but since Altan, I've tried Altan using the A2 and looked at his overall damage of using the A2 every time it was up compared to the A1, and just forewent like, I'm not going to worry about anybody else's damage or the overall. I just want to test Altan to see if maybe the increase by using the A2 every time it is up makes it worthwhile to replace Turbolt. The increase in the damage with him was marginal. It was like using his A2 every time it was up compared to getting it to play well with Turbolt was like maybe a 0.2 million increase. I mean, 0.2, that's nothing. It certainly wasn't worth getting him stunned and then having to remove the stun with Steel Skull instead of attacking and having a chance to apply poisons. I mean, albeit Steel Skull doesn't apply much poisons, it's 2 hits, 35% chance per hit to put a poison up. So he doesn't do a whole lot, but those little bits count, they add up. And especially when every single stun round you're removing a stun instead of attacking there. Like, I mean, if you're looking at, say, overall throughout the entire fight, you know, you missed out on 15 poisons. Each poison's 50,000 damage. That's over 500,000. That's like, what, 750,000 damage, I want to say, that you're missing out on. That's almost 1 million damage to get an extra 0.2 million? No. Doesn't make sense. So, with this group here, I just can't really use, I have to be careful with using Altan's A2. So if you have a similar group, that's what you're going to have to do, is you're going to have to pay, especially if you have somebody like Turbolt that rips through turns, you have to pay very close attention the round prior to the stun if he has his A2 up and be like, okay, is this guy going to get 2 turns? If so, am I willing to let that champion get stunned? Are they going to survive? So that's what you got to figure out too, because at this point, it doesn't matter too much who gets stunned. I'm fine with using Altan during the prior to the second round of AoE, where it means he'll get stunned. Everybody else will get 2 turns before the defense wears off. He'll only get 1 turn, which means he'll still have the increased defense. Everybody else will lose it. And in my case, Martyr gets stunned there. But anyway, but with that said, you have to figure out what's going to be best for your composition. But at that point, like I was saying, I'm fine with using that at that point, because no matter who gets stunned, I'm always going to have to remove the stun later on in the game, because the damage is going to be so intense for the stun that if I don't heal them and remove it with Steel Skull, they're going to die anyway. And that's one of the things that's great about Steel Skull, is when the damage... Steel Skull does help the person who gets stunned stay alive at least 1 more AoE round, which is good, because normally when they'd get stunned, lose some life, get the AoE on top of that, and they'd get killed, Steel Skull usually helps keep somebody alive for at least that other round. But then you gotta wonder, like, well, is it worth having Steel Skull in place of somebody else just to keep somebody else alive another round, or maybe 2 AoE rounds, you know? but sometimes it's more than 2 AoE round, like 1 AoE round. Sometimes it's through 2 AoE rounds. So depends on the RNG here and how well, you know, how well Steel Skull does their job, basically. But with the stun removal and the heal, sometimes he will get 2 stuns worth of rounds that he keeps them alive when they would have died. And if it's 2, then that's, you know, a lot more turns. And then you sure, yeah, Steel Skull did his job well. But Steel Skull's kind of hit or miss. So with that said, like I said, I'm going to start this here because I think I've been rambling on enough, but trying to give you guys some insight as to what's going on here, not just, oh, look at my numbers. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to help you guys. Like, that's the big part of the reason I do my videos, is try to help people out here. So with that said, I'm trying to help show you guys what goes on with the mechanics with this type of group, so you know what's been going on up to this point. So my champions are going to die soon. Turbold's most likely going to die during the first AoE. At most, definitely the second AoE. There's no way he's going to survive with a sliver of life again. This was very fortunate. That's usually the AoE round where he gets killed. So, now I only have 1 turn left on the defense down. Martyr is not that reliable for defense down. I don't want to count on her applying it, so I'm going to refresh it with Dracomorph here, because his hit points are almost completely topped off. He's not going to get the stun, so it doesn't matter that they're not topped off. I'll have another attack round. And then, let's see, no, yeah, got 3 turns for it too. Beautiful, beautiful. And 3 turns for weakened. Great, so he did his job really well. Nice. Alright, so, like I said, he might end up getting killed anyway, and I need to top his hit points off anyway, so I want to give him that buff, and he has 4 buffs now, and that's one of the things that Ultan does that does actually help out Turbold here, is during circumstances like this, where you know Turbold's going to get stunned, it kind of sucks, but this extra buff here makes his Juggernaut hit harder. So instead of him only having his 3 buffs, Ultan is giving him a 4th buff. And that's where Ultan does work well with him under certain circumstances. This is one of those circumstances. So yeah, he's going to lose the increased defense, but he's going to lose it by going out with a bang, like I said earlier. And that's what I want him to do, is he's going on a suicide mission right now. So he's the man. He's taking one for the team like that. Now, with that said, the extra buff, just for those you don't know, and you can't rely on my numbers because this is based on my gear and the fact that I have Turbold in gear with enough accuracy to apply Weaken. I need him as my Weaken champion because Dracomorph cannot keep up Weaken by himself, and it's much more advantageous for me to try to keep up Weaken constantly than to get the extra damage I could get from Turbold by foregoing accuracy in the sense of getting more crit damage and hit points and defense. He already has 99% crit rate when he gets his increased crit rate here. So, I mean, I could use the 1% more, but there wasn't any gear that made sense to like put it on just for an extra 1%. He rarely ever misses at 99% anyway. But with that said, he's close to the 100%, but then after that, like, you want to keep giving him crit damage, and he goes up substantially with crit damage, but you also want some defense and some hit points for survivability so he doesn't dive way too far into the game, and then it's like, well, yeah, he hit really hard, but he only hit for 5 AoE rounds and died, when if you put some more defense and hit points on him, he could have survived for 9 and only had a decrease of, like, say, 5% damage. So you gotta crunch numbers like that as well. A lot of this is number crunching, but if you're not good with crunching numbers and calculations or calculus, if you never took physics or engineering or anything like that, your best bet is to just take screenshots each time at the end of a fight and take the averages. You can't just rely on one fight. You need to do at least 7 or 8 fights during one type of run, whether it be a certain strategy or certain gear, at least 7 or 8 runs, and take the average of those 7 or 8 runs, and then figure out if that was better than something else, or try your new strategy to compare to it. Because the RNG is so random in this game. I mean, you look at this damage, there's a lot of times where that would have killed Turbold, and like I said, there's sometimes too where I would say about a quarter to maybe a half of the time he would get killed the AoE round prior. So he was fortunate in the AoE round prior, he only took like this much damage, and then this AoE round he took this much damage. And meanwhile, you know, the weird thing is Dracomorph has much higher hit points and defense than him, yet on that second to last AoE round when he was about here, Dracomorph was a tiny bit lower. He went down to here. He took a really hard hit. So the damage is really, really RNG like that. So it's kind of unpredictable. Like, if you increase your defense on average, your champion should tend to survive longer if you increase the defense enough or the hit points enough. I tend to favor defense for many reasons that I'm not going to get into in this video. But with that said, it's going to increase your survivability on average, but only on average. There's no guarantee because the RNG is so RNG. It's so random. Now, with this here, like I said, this extra buff, now again, like I was explaining, this is just for my gear and for Turbold with enough accuracy to apply weaken reliably on this boss, which is about I'd say at least 230, 235 accuracy on the Ultra Nightmare boss to reliably place it without getting resisted, and even then you'll get resisted sometimes, but regardless, at about 230, 235. And then with that said, and with the 100%, well, 99% crit rate, about I think 106% extra bonus damage. With that said, with those stats, I'll show you the stats at the end here, since I'm trying to show you how to work with Turbo, because he's the hardest to work with out of this group, and that's why I'm focusing on him. And even if you don't have Turbo, if you have a champion that's similar to him that rips through turns, that's the big issue here, is he rips through turns and loses buffs because of it. But he uses those buffs to his advantage, like I said. Now, with that said, with my gear, with his stats, with what I'm running with him right now, each buff gives him an average of about an extra, I want to say about an extra 8,000 damage overall per A3. So if he has 2 extra buffs on him, it's about an extra 16,000 damage or so with the A3. It's a pretty big increase. Not big enough to wait to use the A3. You always want to use the A3 when it's up on Turbo, unless he doesn't have these 3 buffs for whatever reason, but he always should. With the way the mechanics here works, you should always have the A3, or you should already have the 3 buffs by the time that the Juggernaut comes along. The only exception where I'll ever not do it is in the very, very first round, because I buff him up with this. I want to apply weaken, and I want to try to get defense down on the boss, because I have him go as one of the first champions. I want a lot of speed on him so he rips through his turns. So with that said, Altan goes. Altan doesn't have the defense down like Tyrell used to. So with that said, I'm not getting the defense down, and I'm like, makes more sense for him to try to apply weaken, increase everybody else's damage initially, and then Martyr with the counterattack will hopefully apply the defense down. Most of the time she does. And then I have the weaken, I have the defense down to come at the boss with you know, now 5 buffs, because she just gave me the increased defense and the counterattack, which means that, yeah, I passed 1 turn up of the A3, but now I'm getting an extra 15,000 damage with it on top of all the extra damage from the defense down on the weaken too. So in that case, then yeah, it's advantageous to do it. And there's other circumstances where sometimes I'll wait to use it if I see, like, defense down fell off the boss, weaken fell off the boss. Man, like, I need weaken up there at least. Let me do the A1. Next round I'll do the A3 if Martyr's going to be doing the counterattack and everything else. Otherwise, sometimes I'll just use it anyway and cut my losses. But if Martyr's about to give me, like, say if there's only 1 round left here, I know the AoE's coming up, she's going to give me a counterattack, then I'm like, well, I'm going to get 2 more buffs for it. Let me use the A1. And then I'll use the A3 for an extra 15,000. So some things like that you got to consider, but again, it's a lot of experimentation, seeing what works for your groups. So he's kind of going on a suicide run. And this A3, like I said, the A3 hits so hard. You look at his hit points, it doesn't matter if he gets War Master here. Now, he did get War Master, but you saw how much he hit for. He would have topped himself off anyway. Now, he's going to die. This is, again, why I wanted to record this at this point. There's no point in, like, if you're in a circumstance like this, there is no point using Steel Skull's heal to try to top him off when he just survived with that sliver of life on the last AoE attack that happened. There's no way he's going to survive this, because this here, it's a base 40%. If you have the max skills, which you eventually should, of course, the maximum with the skill ups, it goes up to 50%. They should change the numbers here so you can see the actual numbers, but with the skill ups, this heals by 50%. You see he's below 50%. It'd only bring him up to about here. I can pretty much guarantee he's going to die there. So Steel Skull might die during this AoE round anyway, so it's going to be really intense. So I figure I got a lot of debuff slots open still. I don't remember if Dracomorph has poisons. If Dracomorph has poisons, I'd almost say maybe I would heal Turbold and give it a shot, because there is a slim chance it'd survive. But since I can't remember whether Dracomorph has his poisons, and I want to try to get all the damage out of my champions that I can now, I'm going to go for trying to get poisons and War Master. Even if I don't get poisons, I might at least get War Master. Yeah, I got War Master. And see, he has his poisons. So even then, though, I still only have 6 buffs on the boss. So this is going to actually fill the boss up. So this is actually good. This is perfect. So more likely than not, he would have died anyway. So those are the kind of things you need to consider, like, oh, let me try to keep this champion alive, but then it's at the expense of him not getting a War Master, having no chance at applying poisons. Even though he didn't apply poison, he got the 64,000 from the War Master. So, goodbye, Turbold. He was going to die soon anyway. Let's see how much damage everybody else took. Like, look at even Dracomorph went down to this. There's no way. Turbold has much less defense and hit points than Dracomorph, so he absolutely would have died regardless. But he got that one last really hard hit, which is good, so it was worth it. Now, if I had kept the increased defense on him, would he have survived there? He would have survived the stun. I could have healed him and kept him alive, but then he probably would have died for the AoE round anyway, so he would have gotten one more hit. I would have had to use Steel Skull to remove the stun anyway, just so he could get one more hit, and that hit wouldn't have been a Juggernaut. Now, if it was going to be a Juggernaut, and I knew I could get like one last hit from him to keep him alive, and Steel Skull can keep him alive for a Juggernaut, then yeah, it would be worth it. But since it wasn't a Juggernaut, it's like, nah, not worth it. Now, see, this is one of these circumstances where, like, okay, like, Steel Skull just took a lot of damage, didn't get his heal from his counterattack. This is what I'm talking about, where your healer has a much lower chance at getting it. There's a really good chance that he won't get it this round either. So, wow, that's actually shocking. Usually these 2 rounds when the damage gets intense, he'll miss it. Since he didn't there, it's most likely going to happen after this next AoE if he survives it. I would honestly be surprised. I think this is going to take out some more champions. Ooh, this is a lucky round. Wow, yeah, but see, now he missed it. So that's 1 miss. And like I said, you look at how often he's missing it. Other people are getting theirs. And your healer's going to miss it. This is where the game is rigged. This is the kind of thing that kills this game for players. Plarium, if any from Plarium sees this video, this is what kills it. We see this. We know this. Your vets, we pay attention. Like, we're not idiots, especially your vets that are whales. Like, we're smart people, unless it's like spoiled little brats. But like those of us who are making that money, we see what's going on, and we see our healer consistently not getting their War Masters there. We see that the game's rigged. Like, and it's really, really discouraging. It's like, some of us like me, like, I love the game. I don't love Plarium. I can't stand Plarium. You guys are really corrupt. Like, you're seriously corrupt. Like, after the Foley paywall scam, I used to support you guys before that. I used to defend you guys before that. After Foley, no, I wiped my hands of that. I look out for you players out there. This isn't for Plarium. This is for the players. This is for you guys, to help you guys out that still enjoy playing this game. But I have absolutely no regard for Plarium. I don't make these videos to try to help promote Plarium. I mean, yeah, I want Plarium to make money, because then it means they put more investment into the game and more content. But lately, the content has been garbage too. Wow. That is really weird. I feel like it's like Plarium's like watching me somewhere. Like, they're like Big Brother. Like, because this never happens. Seriously. Like, Steel Skull does not get that many War Masters at this point in the game. It's like, it's just looking to prove me wrong to make me look stupid here, but anyway. But you see, he has missed more often than other champions. It does decrease the chances of him getting War Masters substantially. And like I said, you look at previous videos of mine, or if you have a healer and you're going through this, I don't know if it's just Ultra Nightmare, or if, let's see, he, again, missed it. Look at how often he's missing it. Again, missed it. So he's missing it really often. And then again, see what I'm talking about? That is what I'm talking about there. That is the kind of thing that I would expect from Steel Skull. That's why it's hard to really make a healer very viable in this, because they rig it so that your healer has a very increased chance of getting themselves killed like this near the end. And I lost Dracomorph, which was my big poisoner, but he got a last round of poisons. So at this point, my goal is to just try to get all these poisons. So it's to try to keep at least one of these champions alive for 3 more rounds to get the 3 ticks from this. If I can even just keep the 2, that's the 2 rounds here. That's, you know, 50,000 from each of these. That's 300,000 just from these ones if I can get it. This here, I mean, that's another you know, 100,000. So yeah, so see how long they could survive. That's why near the end here, some people just go, oh well, whatever, I'm about to die, who cares, and they just do whatever. But it's like, pay attention to your debuffs. So I had a friend that did this once, and I'm like, dude, you still have poisons up, and he had an HP burn up, and I'm like, dude, you got a lot of damage coming to you still if you can keep those champions alive. So, and he did, and then it's like, we did a number crunch, and it was like I think 5 poisons and an HP burn, and it was like, I don't remember, it was like a lot of turns. He had his Dracomorph too. It was like almost like about, I want to say like 600 something thousand more damage that he was going to get from it. I'm like, dude, you need to pay attention to these things. So anyway, but that's what those of us who try to overachieve at this game do, is we pay attention to all those things, like how to maximize our damage like that. That's why if you want to get top numbers for the champions you got, like, those are the things you got to pay attention to. Now see, I'm gonna at least get, you know, 4 more. That's gonna be at least another 200,000. He's most likely gonna get killed here. Oh no, he topped himself off good. So he's gonna get the last poison too. Another 50,000. Not much, I mean, it's 50,000. Holy crap! Holy crap! Oh my god! Oh my god! Wow! Wow! That is a new record. That is a new record. My highest record so far was 24.2. 26.3. You see why I love Turbold so much. Look at him. Steel Skull does poisons. He takes up debuff slots to get this 4.5. Turbold blew him out the water with a 5.6. And raw damage. He needed no debuff slots like Steel Skull does. Dracomorph is friggin' beautiful. 9.3 from Dracomorph. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But, yeah, this is a new record. This is freaking awesome. Wow, that is beautiful. But you see now, All-10, his damage is pretty impressive. I mean, he's not getting stunned like Martyr, so he's missing, you know, what is that, 1/3 of his turns that she is. So he can do a lot of damage. He can do a real lot of damage. Especially like in dungeons, he's amazing. I love him in dungeons, because like, say God forbid you're running in a dungeon where one of your champions gets killed, and if he kills somebody, which with how hard he hits is a good chance even on auto that he'll kill somebody, he resurrects your freaking champion and he puts a shield on everybody. It's freaking awesome. Like, I almost, when I first had him, I was kind of like, is this really going to be better than Tyrell? I'm not getting the defense down. Tyrell's A3 hits really hard. All-10's A2 hits much harder. But also on the clan boss, really more than anything, they're your stun taker. So you're not expecting them to pump out a ton and ton of damage. They're taking the stuns so that everybody else can do more. So that's kind of the thing too. I'm almost wondering, though, if it makes more sense in the beginning. You really can't do it. Because I would say, since Martyr does less damage, it's almost like, oh man, I wish she could take the stuns, but if she takes the stuns, then it throws her counterattacks off. Because for those of you who don't know, the stun keeps your cooldowns from cooling down. And that's why you can't let your counterattack champion take the stuns. Because if she takes the stuns, and you don't remove the stun before the end of that turn, her counterattack won't cool down for the next round. So you can't do it. You have to have it on a champion where you don't mind their cooldowns not cooling down for that stun round. And with All-10, his A2 does hit really hard, like I said, when it crits. When it doesn't crit, it only does a slight bit more damage than the A1. So unless you can get a modest amount of crit on him, I would say at least like, you know, 35, 45% at least. It doesn't make much sense if it's going to mess up your other rotation with champions like Turbold or something and other champions getting stunned. Doesn't make sense to be using that A2 at the wrong time and getting somebody else stunned. So you got to pay attention to that. And like I said, if you use his A2 during the second AoE round, like where there's one turn left on the set, like the second AoE is coming up and you use his A2 then, everybody else will get 2 turns before the stun, because they're going to all get a turn before the AoE round happens, and then they're going to get another round before the stun. He's only getting 1 round before the stun because he applies the increased defense on everybody. All of them go after that, but he doesn't go after that because his turn was applying the increased defense. So now he still has 2 turns on it. They all reduce theirs by a turn before the AoE, and then they all reduce theirs completely before the stun. And then he still has 1 turn left on his. He doesn't get stunned. For my case, Martyr gets stunned, and like I said, I can't have that. It's my counterattack champion. Now, with that said, if you want All-10 as your leader, because you want that 33% increased defense, which I apologize there, had an alarm go off. But like I was saying, you have that 33% increased defense there. It's great, but say you don't want him being the one to get stunned. Say you have some other champion, whoever, that has like a really good kit for like debuffs, but you don't mind them getting stunned over Altan, and Altan can do a lot more damage than them. Then, if you can figure out a way to have them lose that increased defense, or figure out some way to get them stunned instead of Altan while having him as the leader, then go for it. But with me, like I said, with Turbold, he does so much damage that it's like, no, I cannot have him getting stunned. But then if I remove it from Steel Skull, you see Steel Skull does a lot more damage than Altan. And even when, like I said, I wasn't having Altan getting stunned, his damage only went up to like 3.6, 3.7. It wasn't worth it, because it's like, but then meanwhile, Steel Skulls went down by like 0.5 or 0.6 something at least. So Steel Skulls went down far more than Altan's went up. So then I'm like, well, didn't make sense. But that's the kind of thing you need to do when you're experimenting, is you need to do multiple runs, because there was one, the first run went great, and I was like, Altan did a lot more damage, Steel Skull did about the same, Turbold was fine because I was removing the stun, so his damage was about the same, so everything went well the first round, and I was like, oh, awesome, okay, I can always use Altan's and just let Turbold get stunned and remove it. Then the second, third, fourth, fifth ones, consistently much less damage from Steel Skull, only a little bit more from Altan. So it was just this fluke where the first round went really well there. I guess he was very fortunate in getting a lot of crits, and I guess maybe Steel Skull got more poisons than usual. It was just a fortunate run. But then after that, no. Like I said, I did about 5 or 6, and it was consistent though for like the next 4 or 5, whatever. All of them was a huge difference, and I'm just like, no, I'm losing like 0.4 million damage from this change. No. So anyway, but yeah, this number is awesome. Again, one more shout out. Here we go. Ready? It's friggin' awesome. All right, but yeah, thanks guys, and I appreciate it. And with this team, I don't even have Bad Alcazar. If I had Bad Alcazar, I'd be pushing over 30 million. For this team, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a great composition, but I'm still running with an epic. If I could run with a legendary like Bad L, I could go without lifesteal on these champions. Oh man, what I could do with Bad L. But anyway, but no, for this group, this is amazing. I don't know if I can push really much more with them. That is amazing. So yeah, but yeah, glad I was able to record it, show you guys these numbers, and give you some tips here. Hopefully it helps you guys out with your damage there. Other than that, any questions, concerns, comments, stupid statements, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I'm going to keep working on this group here, see if I can try to push a little bit more on some of my good runs here. Even the worst runs here, I still usually push. I think the lowest I've ever gotten was like 19.98, like just under 20 million. With my bad runs with Tyrell, there was times where I did as low as like 17.5. So on average though, like, I mean, the average of this one doesn't vary as much. That's the thing, is my numbers have stabilized more since I've had Altan in the group compared to Tyrell. With Tyrell, my numbers would go as low as like 17.5, but they had gone as high at one point as like, I think it was like 23.6 or 23.8, something like that. I have a previous video showing that record, I think. No, actually, I didn't record the one with the record. It was like 23.8. It was pretty good. But then I set a record with this at 24.2, and that was my highest prior to this. This is crazy, though. It's 2.1 million damage more. I don't even understand how. I guess that must have been an entire extra AoE round that Dracomorph survived for, because his is normally like 8 million something. His is 9 million. Turbold's is a little bit higher than usual. Steel Skull's about usually what he pulls. Martyr's about usual. Altan's about usual. So really, the Turbold's a little bit Dracomorph more than anything. So yeah, it was just a really good run. So anyway, but yeah, I'm going to get to work on these champions. Oh, did tell you guys I'm going to show you my Turbold, because I was telling you about with my buffs on Turbold, it gives me about an extra 8,000 damage on average per buff. Overall on the A3. So I'm not talking per hit, I'm talking overall. It gives me about an extra 8,000. Now with that said, that's with these stats right here. So if you have different stats, if you don't need the accuracy, and as such you're able to run with more crit damage or more crit rate, things like that, you have to take that into consideration as far as how much damage you're going to get out of each buff. Because if you have a higher crit damage, the crit rate doesn't matter. I'm getting to 100% crit rate with Juggernaut, but so it's really about your crit damage. If you have, you know, substantially higher crit damage than 108, say like 120, 130, you're gonna be most likely getting more damage out of each of those buffs. So then you have to figure out how valuable they are, and if it is, at what circumstances is it worth you saying, I'm gonna wait to use my A3 and apply the A1 right now because I'm gonna get 2 more buffs. That's gonna increase it by, say, who knows, maybe if you have really, really good stats, maybe it'll increase it by, you know, another 12,000 on each one, so like 24,000, and maybe it would be worth it under those circumstances. I don't know. But you have to experiment. You have to see what works for you. And so I figured I'd show you guys the stats here so you see where his are at. And like I said, I could push more, but I need his weaken. His weaken is much more valuable than foregoing weaken just to get some extra damage out of him. What he not only does great raw damage himself, but you have to keep in mind he's using weaken too, and he's contributing to everybody else's damage in that process, and that's what makes him even more valuable to me, is not just his amazing raw damage that he does, but the fact that he has this accuracy piece here, and as such he's doing more with that. Now, with that said, I am also running this banner. I mean, because I mean, you need, if I didn't like you need at least 230 accuracy if you want to reliably put the weaken on the boss, and I need that weaken up there. It's worth it. So anyway, but that's all that I got, guys. I figured I'd show you those stats, and then that's all I got for now. But I'm going to get to work on these champions. You see, I can improve them. I mean, there's some of these that are only rares still, but this is a 6-star rare, so it's, you know, 96 accuracy on it. That's really good, and it has stats that I needed. It has 20% crit rate, yes. 6% defense, yes. Another 6 speed, not a huge amount, but it does have speed on it, which some don't have any. So these are a good combination of stats. The only stat that's on here that I don't want is the hit points. But 3 stats that I do want, and a 6-star with 96 accuracy. That's great. So, you know, so that's the thing, is sometimes it's not about the star levels or about the rarity, it's about the stats on it. Now, like there's somebody that's still running with a green though, or maybe a couple of greens. Yes, I got a green on her because it had the stats that I needed. It has 50% defense, whereas the best of anything else was 50%, but it didn't have these other stats that I needed. I needed the extra crit damage, I needed the extra hit points. The other one had a little bit more speed on it, and a little bit more accuracy, but it had no crit damage, had no hit points. It just had like attack percent. She doesn't benefit from attack percent because she's a defense champion. Her damage scales on defense. So with that said, and that's like for those of you who don't know, you have to look at, like, not everybody scales on attack. If it says damage based on defense, this means that the more you increase your defense stats, the harder this hits. So some champions don't benefit at all from attack. She has nothing, absolutely nothing to gain from increasing her attack. It does nothing for her. And you see this A3, same thing, damage based on defense. This doesn't do damage, it's a buff. Well, 2 buffs, I should say. But so you got to pay attention to those things too. So she doesn't benefit from attack. So for me, this piece here was the best piece that I could possibly put on her with the stats that I needed, and it's a green, which sucks. But it has the stats that I need on it. I think he has a green too. Yeah, he's got a green too. So I can improve. I can get better stats. But again, this has accuracy. It has hit points. It has defense. The attack isn't that great, but attack is at least something he can benefit from because he does do damage based on attack here. He's a support champion, but support sometimes scales on hit points, sometimes on defense. More often than not, it's usually attack or defense, I think. I think usually attack on supports. But anyway, so he scales on attack, so at least that's nice. But again, it had the stats that I needed on it to get the most out of this champion. That hit points and the defense was great, and I need an accuracy chess piece. So those are the kind of things you need to run with. So I can improve on these champions some. I think I could push upwards of like 27, 28 million on really good runs. Could I get over 30? Maybe in a very, very long time when I have like stuff that's like 5, 6 stars and it's like all epics and legendaries, but it would take a lot of farming. A lot of farming. And it's going to take time because I don't put a ton of money into energy anymore in the game these days because, I mean, my increases are going to be marginal most of the time. It's inching my way up, inch by inch by inch. Like every once in a rare while I come across a great 5 or 6 star legendary like this and I'm like, ooh, but it's every once in a very, very rare while. Maybe I've been farming for a week straight and like tons of energy, thousands and thousands of points worth of energy, and then finally, Ooh, 20% crit damage, 12% crit rate, 7% hit points, which helps his survival, 12% attack. Those are amazing stats. It's the best stats that I go for. You can't get defense, I don't think, on the weapon. I don't believe so. I don't think I've ever seen defense on it. You can get hit points, though, which help with survival. This is every stat that I want on him. This is perfect for him. So I put some of the max bonuses into these. So you see the 3%. I only have 1%. Actually, I need to upgrade this. So see, there's little upgrades that I can do like this. I think I didn't have a glyph at the time to upgrade it, which I might now. Yeah, now I do, but it may not. That's the thing that sucks with glyphs. It could give me an extra 1%. It could give me the same. Let's see what happens here. Let me give it a shot. Waste it. That's why I'm not a big fan of faction wars. I don't feel like the effort's worth the rewards. But anyway, it was worth a shot. Because more than anything, I need to try to increase Turbo's survival, as you could see. He could have survived for a couple more rounds, at least 1 or 2 more. But it's not worth changing entire gear just to make that happen, just for an extra round or 2. If I can push a little more and squeeze a little more out of glyphs like that, sure. But anyway, that's all that I got for now, guys. Again, any questions, comments, concerns, super statements, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, this was an amazing run. Hope you guys learned some from this. Hope I gave you some good information with if you have Turbold or if you have somebody that's similar to him in a counterattack group. Hopefully gave you some useful info here. In the meantime, I'm going to get to work on my champions, maybe do a little farming here tonight, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. So until then. Hi guys, this is Anthony here, also known on this channel as AscendantGod. Wanted to thank you for checking out my channel here, really appreciate it. Be sure to check out the other videos. I got plenty of goodies on here. Also check out the description sections in the videos. Got plenty of links on there for real different kinds of goodies that I think would be worthwhile for you guys. If there is something in particular that you don't see on my channel that you want to see, be sure to let me know in the comment section as well. And I think that's about it. All I've got. I'm just going to get back to this thing here. I'm pretty sure if I just... Oh.
You have such sights to show you.
Wow. That's really funny. Same here.